In this training video, I will demonstrate how you can perform linear regressions in the KIWI ExploreLive module. I will illustrate how to use basic settings, such as the selection of the data source, the selection of the two variables involved in the linear regression. I will demonstrate the use of the interactive functionality offered by the plot, summarizing the result of the linear regression. And I will also illustrate the use of advanced settings. I have an ExploreLive session open already, loaded with a data set called demo.csv. This is the same simulated pharmacokinetic data set that we have used in previous tutorials. I have used this dataset to create a modified dataset called 1 per ID. This dataset filters the original data to 1 record per subject. This pharmacokinetic dataset contains many covariables that are time invariant. So I can subset to the first record per subject and still get a distribution of those covariables that would be representative. To perform a linear regression on this data set, you need to go to the analysis menu and click on the regression option. This opens this interface with a regression settings panel at the top, and the regression plots in the center, where the regression plots will be displayed once the proper selections are made in the upper panel. Similarly, the regression summary will be displayed only when those selections are made. In the regression setting, you should start by selecting the data source. In this first field, you can view a list of all the data sets that you have imported. It will also list the modified data set that you may have created in the data submodule. And it will show the pool data if you have merged or pooled two data sets together in this data module. So in our example, I will select the 1 per ID data set. So a linear regression, simple linear regression involves the use of two variables, x-axis variable, which would be the independent variable of the relationship. The y-axis variable would be the dependent variable. So in this case, I want to have a look at the relationship between the creatinine clearance variable versus weight. And so as soon as I select my two variables, the linear regression is run. The regression plots will report two plots. First, a simple scatter plot of the y-axis variable versus the x-axis variable that you have selected on the top. The linear relationship that was fitted to the data is shown with this blue line, and it is shown with the confidence interval. I believe it is the 90% confidence interval. This is the default settings from the R linear regression function. The second plot is a residual plot versus prediction. So it gives you an idea about how center your residuals are compared to your prediction. On the right side, you can see a little summary of that linear regression. The number of observation included in the regression are listed first, then the model is summarized, and then some residuals distribution, then the table, the ANOVA table that was performed on the linear regression model with the intercept estimate and the slope estimate, the significance of those two parameters in terms of p-value. You've got some additional statistics, the residual standard error, sum, the multiple r squared, so that would be your Pearson, no, that's the Pearson r coefficient, that's the r square coefficient. The F statistics, number of degrees of freedom, and the p-value of the slope. This is the same statistics here, or similar, typically. There are a few things that you can customize in this submodule. You can perform some transformation of the data. So if you were looking at a variable that is not normally distributed, or if you want to apply some kind of transformation, you could. You need to enter a valid R functions. So if you want something that would be, not sure if that's going to work. No, those are very high values. So I'm going to do something not necessarily meaningful, but I'm going to apply a sine function to my weight. Similarly, I'm going to apply a sine function to the current creatinine clearance. This creates something that is not necessarily meaningful, but you can see how you can transform those data variables. So I'm just going to remove that and revert back to the original data. One thing that you could play on is whether or not you want to include an intercept to your linear regression. Yes, so in this case, the model is summarized with this -1, which represent the absence of an intercept. You don't estimate an intercept in the model. So there's not a lot of difference in this case between the model with or without the intercept. So these are the options that you can use to control a little bit the variables, the transformation of the variables, the intercept. You can also control and use the interactive feature of this the left plot to exclude data points. So if you want to, for example, exclude this group of data points, you just click on the mouse, select, and this data point now will show with the different symbols an empty circle, and the list of excluded data will be shown in this panel, excluded data. If you want to get some information about those data points, you could add additional variables to this table by selecting additional variable in this field. So I'm going to add my ID, I'm going to add the num, maybe, well, time is not necessarily useful here, but if you want some concentration information, you can add those. Well, actually, those are the dosing records, so there is no observation here, but I can see my ID variable. In this field, you can click on two buttons. The copy to clipboard will copy the content of these tables to your clipboard, and you can paste it to Excel or any kind of word processing software. And then you can work on this data outside of the ExploreLive module. You can keep on clicking on data, and this will just add to the list of exclusion. And each time you select some additional points to exclude, the linear regression is updated. And you can see in the summary that the count of observation used in the regression is updated, and the number of records excluded is also reported here. You can click on the reset button to remove all the exclusions and revert back to the original data subset. The last piece of functionality that is available to you is this data subset tab. This is another way to exclude data point. The functionality that is offered in this tab is strictly similar to the functionality described in a separate tutorial called Data Subset. I invite you to watch this separate tutorial to learn more about the use of those fields and how you can subset or exclude data point from your selected dataset. This concludes the presentation of the linear regression functionality of the ExploreLive module. If you have questions, please refer to the user manual or send us questions at kiwisupport@cognigencorp.com. Thank you very much.